service to our country. And they're celebrating by hosting the annual Veterans Day Appreciation Day on Tuesday, November the 8th from 11 to 1 at the Camden National Guard Armory. There will be special guest presentations, a great meal, and giveaways, all to honor the service and sacrifice to our nation. That's on Tuesday, November the 8th from 11 to 1. Apex Bank, over 90 years of service to Benton County. Member FDIC, Equal Housing Lender.
Good morning, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to Operation 7570 on this wet Saturday morning. First Saturday in the month of November. Holiday time is approaching, and a lot of businesses today are doing open houses, and we know that a lot of our listeners and watchers today will be out in full force, so be safe out there as we prepare for the holidays. And today in our studios with us at WRJB, two lovely young ladies. Always a pleasure to have these young girls to have a chat about various things today. And in our studios today, Heather Deckard Smith from the office of the University of Tennessee TSU Extension Service at the old Light Company building, and our good friend Tammy Carter, nurse who's taught over at Bethel and very active with community affairs, as is Heather. And girls, welcome to the program today. Thanks for getting up on such a wet, dreary morning.
Thank you, Flash. It's going to be a good day. Even though it's raining, it's going to be a good day.
I was telling Tammy before you got here, I think I got in from Memphis last night at 2, maybe got into bed about 4. Time you girls waking up, getting the little ones all ready to go. But anyway, if I fall asleep, you just two carry on. And if you hear me snore, just
I
get me or something. But
I was at the Riverside game last night, so we didn't get home early either. So I completely understand. I was like, ooh, what time do I want to set that alarm for this morning?
Riverside had a victory, didn't they?
Yes, they did win, and they'll be playing at maybe Mount Pleasant?
We'll have to check and
I'll
see.
check and see that.
But,
South of Columbia.
But the Camden Lions, they went down there, faced an undefeated team down in Memphis. Memphis fairly played very respectable in the ball game, had some highlights, scored 33 points, I believe it was, and that was the second most of any team that had scored on Fairleigh this year.
Great.
That's exactly right. The most points they yielded up to last night was 38 points, but they were undefeated and still undefeated. But hey, I know we're losing a lot of good seniors that you girls are familiar with, but we appreciate them. And moving on to basketball.
Oh, that's right. We got other things, but they did good. They announced their scores at our game, so it was interesting to keep up. And I was looking on the Facebook to see how they were doing.
Right.
So.
Okay. Well, this morning we've brought you two into our studios today to talk about a subject that should be very important to everybody watching or listening to us today. We're approaching a holiday season, but that also means it's the season for flu and other respiratory ailments, and that's what we want to talk about this morning, girls. So where do we begin?
Well, it is flu season, and it's time to be thinking about getting your flu vaccine. We've been traveling. Nurse Tammy is what I like to call her when she's in her nursing role, but I've been traveling a little bit to some meetings in the area, and, I hear my friends in other counties say the flu has already hit. Humphreys County, adults are running 102 fever, 103. Henry County's got a little bad wave going on right now, and they're like, somebody couldn't come to our meeting the other day because they had the flu, and so their whole house was down because one had it. And we're just going to talk about that and how you can prevent the flu, how you can immunize your vaccine. What's the word?
Vaccine. Immunization
against the flu, and we'll talk some general facts and information for people.
Well, let me start out with a fact. Georgia has the most number of cases right now. Tennessee is right behind it, but even as recent as yesterday, the numbers skyrocketed. 90% of the pediatric hospital beds in the state are already full of sick children, and this year they're getting a combination of the RSV and the COVID and the flu, and they're very sick children. So that brings it to the fact we started much earlier. We got started back in September. We usually don't get started until about December with the spikes, but we're not getting started. We're already there.
We're in it.
Yep.
So
I want to get back and we'll get a definition of flu and the other term you mentioned, RSV. I really want to know about that as we go along this morning. But Heather, a question for you. Of course, down through the years, we always appreciate the folks at UT Extension and the great things that you do as far as healthy living, our diet, good nutrition, things like that. But as time has evolved, as has the UT Extension looked more into things that maybe one time you didn't? Vaccines, things like that.
No, I would say maybe we're going back to our roots.
Okay.
I would say, we started out corn clubs and tomato canning clubs, and we were teaching people to preserve their food in a proper way so they wouldn't get food poisoning and increase their nutrition. Because we had people, when World War II happened, we had people who were malnourished and could not go to fight because they didn't have the right food in their diet. So that was some of the things. We made mattresses because people had bed bugs and fleas and chiggers and all these things because of the mattresses they had. So it was a public health issue, but we were educating them on that in a different way. Does that make
Sure,
sense?
yeah, it does.
So it's like an emergent issue. When we have emerging issues in our community, that's we can shift our focus a little bit to educate people on, we have diabetes. We know that here. We're the 86th unhealthiest county in the state of Tennessee because of types of behaviors, our access to health care, just, several things, not being, taking the standard vaccinations, just lots of things play into that number per se.
Yeah.
But it just helps us, like right now we're just seeing a spike in flu. So we want to talk about the flu and why you should get immunized. I'm not going to be able to say that today, but why you should get your flu vaccine.
Flu shot.
And your
Let's
flu
just
shot.
make it simple.
And why that's important. And so the CDC has we've gotten a grant with the UT Department of Nursing, the UT Medical Science Center in Memphis, and UT Extension, and they're working on information on messaging about flu. Mm-hmm. Why you should get a vaccine.
And I guess, to elaborate on that just a moment, with social media today, I'm seeing much more information from UT Extension in regards to these things,
Yes.
that normally I would see, from health-related agencies and departments.
And so we have a little funnel of money coming in, and we have someone that, is set to just work that grant. But it just helps to provide basic information. Now we do it differently. It might not be face-to-face or on the radio. It might be a Facebook post, or it might be a little small group meeting, or just a display or a flyer you've seen out in the community. So, yes, we've changed the way we meet and interact a little bit. And some of that is because of COVID, it is. People are still scared to get out.
Well, and there's a good reason to be out because that's one of those common sense ways of preventing infection.
Yeah.
Whether it be COVID or whether it be the flu. We still need those basics. Wash your hands. Stay home if you're sick.
Wear a mask.
Flu addict. Yes, very important. Flu, wear your mask, but get vaccinated because we're already behind the 8 ball, you might say. Everyone, they recommend that you get vaccinated by October the 1st. Well, that has come and gone, and it takes about 2 weeks for you to build up that immunity. So if I'm vaccinated today, I've just got my immunity for the holidays, for Thanksgiving. So it's so important to do it and do it now. And Heather, you want to tell them about November the 9th?
November the 9th in Benton County, the Department of Health here, they are having their flu pod. And it's kind of going to be statewide. All health departments are going to be offering a flu pod to immunize. I'm not going to be able to say it. Immunize their communities against the flu, and it's just a flu pod. You go up and you drive in, kind of like if you went to the health department to get your COVID shot. You go check in, and then they'll get you vaccinated for the flu. Doesn't take very long. In and out, you get registered and in and out. Especially with the pod, it'll be a lot quicker, a lot smoother. But that's just one way that the Department of Health can help people stay healthy during this season of the flu.
November the 9th, you say?
Yes,
Next Wednesday.
Next
now, is
Wednesday.
this going to be down at the health department?
Yes.
They're local
Yes.
on Hospital Avenue. Yeah,
And
Hospital Drive.
there's some Facebook posts floating around. I will make sure that I share it again on my Facebook page. But just come down and see the nice ladies. Christy and all of them will be there and ready to have you shot.
Let me dispel some of the myths about the flu vaccine. First off, it doesn't hurt. It's one of those that doesn't hurt when you get it.
Mm-hmm.
Your arm may get a little sore. You may have a little bit of redness. You might run a little bit of temperature, but you won't get the flu from the flu vaccine.
That's right.
So that's a good point to remember. Now, why would you want to get it? Who is at risk? You are at highest risk of the complications if you are younger than 5 years old, if you're older than 65, if you have any chronic conditions, especially diabetes, heart disease, any of those things.
High blood pressure,
Yes.
obesity.
Yeah. Yes, extremely. If you have a BMI of greater than 40 or greater, you are at an extreme high risk for both COVID complications and flu complications.
Mm-hmm.
Anybody with disabilities, anybody with any type of immune suppression, anyone with cancer. Well, that's a lot of people here in Benton County.
And what I like to tell people is, if you're around those people, if these people are your loved ones, we have a lot of new babies in our community.
Yes, we do.
You know, we have a lot of people right now in the last 3 or 4 weeks in our community that have had a new cancer diagnosis. You know, there are a lot of people. We have a high population of 65 and older.
Yes.
I mean, there's not a day that I do not come in contact with someone who's 65 or older. And so, you know.
This morning.
Well, you know, but
we didn't say that
we
flash.
didn't say
You
that
didn't have
flash. But you know, these are our loved ones. These are people we love. You know, schools. You know, we have babies going to school. I don't want my people to spread it to other people. And it's miserable having the flu. I met someone the other day that said, "I don't think I've ever had the flu," and I said,
You would know it.
You would know it
Yes.
if you've had it. And I mean, it's rough. Nobody wants the flu.
It is. So this year it's a do it for not just yourself, but do it for other people.
Mm-hmm.
I know we have the flu here in our sports teams.
Right now.
I know we have it in our schools. Perry County, I believe, canceled class Friday. And there's several that are canceling their school next week because of the flu. They don't have enough kids. They don't have enough teachers.
I think I saw maybe Coffee County up around Manchester.
Yes,
That may be
yes.
up in that area.
Hamilton County also.
Chattanooga.
Yes.
Okay, all right.
Yeah.
Tammy, what is the flu? What's the definition of the flu? You've taught classes, you've taught nursing classes, you're a professional. What is the flu?
Well, it's a lot more than the common cold.
Yes.
It is a very contagious respiratory disease. It is caused by a virus. And viruses are sometimes they're more difficult to treat sometimes than a bacterial infection. But they affect the nose, the throat, and the lungs. There's two main types. There's A and there's B. A is a little bit more, it's more common, and it has more severe complications. Then there's several others that, you know, what is it, the H1N1 that we had a couple of years ago. But they are caused by viruses that are very easily spread by either someone talking or coughing or sneezing, or let's say I sneezed on this microphone and then you pick it up and touch it, and then you, I don't know, touch your eyes. That's the transmission. The flu vaccine went from me to that object to you and entered your system, and 2 days later you become ill.
Now, the flu, symptoms of the flu and symptoms of the cold, they can be very similar, can't
yes.
they?
Yes.
How do I know if I've got one or the other?
Well, one of the things is we have a little checklist because
That's
we
right.
wanted to make sure. But some of the symptoms are, in general, the cold is, you know, you don't go to bed feeling good and the next morning wake up and feel terrible. Or you don't get up and go to work and say, I don't feel great, but by noon you feel terrible. That's more flu. The cold is kind of like,
I don't feel good today, and I feel worse a little bit later, and I feel worse the next day.
You know, it's a little
Gradual.
bit gradual. And I think people get a little nervous about that. Fever, very rare with a cold. You could have it as it comes on later in your cold series of days, but flu, you're probably going to run a fever. Now, some people don't.
That's right, especially your elderly.
Yeah, they may not have a fever, but they may feel really, really bad. You're going to get a few aches with the cold, but with flu, usually your body's gonna ache somewhere or some part during that flu virus that's living in your body. What else, Miss Tammy?
Chills are common with the flu.
Yes.
Weakness, fatigue.
Can't hold your eyes
Yeah,
open.
can't hold your chest hurts, you've got a cough, and you got a headache.
Yes.
And with the flu, you got the headache, but with a cold, you typically don't have a headache.
It's more, kind of gets up in here, respiratory like type
Yes.
things.
Yeah.
You may have a common runny nose and sore throat are real common with the cold, but not necessarily with the flu.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Well, the flu vaccine, and exactly what it says, it's a vaccine
Yeah.
to guard against flu. We know that. But can it help? Can it help an individual if they get the vaccine? Can it help maybe with other ailments that might come across, other respiratory problems?
Well, it boosts your immunity. So, yes, it will help protect you against that specific
Virus.
virus. It may not prevent you from getting it somewhere, but it will prevent the severity, or it will reduce the severity and reduce the complications. So, is it a 100% you won't get it if you get the vaccine? No. But will you stay out of the hospital, or will you not die? Yes, if you've been vaccinated.
And the vaccines, as of all the other vaccines, they have become more readily accessible
Yes.
with different
Yes.
places. You know, of course, back in the day, you went to the health department for vaccines of all sorts, but now drugstores, healthcare
Yes.
providers, these vaccines are readily available
Yes,
from a
they are.
lot of sources.
And sometimes you'll pay for those.
But sometimes you won't.
and
Sometimes
it-
there's free services.
So you have to look into that. We know we have a low income population here. We have people living on a fixed income, 65 and older. We have grandparents raising grandkids. We know we have that clientele here. So there are ways to get a flu vaccine and it not cost you
That's
anything. And so that's important to know as well. Now, if I probably go in and I have my insurance and I do my well woman appointment this month, and I say, okay, I want my flu shot, and do I need any other vaccines right now? They're going to charge my insurance for that in that process.
And sometimes you can get a flu vaccine with another vaccine. That
Yes.
happened to me here a
Yes.
few weeks ago, as a matter of fact.
Yes.
Local pharmacies here in town. One vaccine went in one arm, one went in the other.
That's right.
That's right.
And you think about it, when the kids have their vaccinations in order to go to school, they can sometimes have up to 5 at a time. Now, as a grandparent, that bothers me, but it is healthy. And I know that it's common practice. So, yes, you're right, Flash. You can get more than one vaccine at a time.
Yes.
Yeah, so
And you can space them out too if you don't want them both at the same. Like you had two at the one time. I had two not this year, but a couple of years ago. I was like, yeah, just do both of them because I needed a booster on something, and it was fine. Now, if Ivy didn't feel well and we went and had to have a series of shots, I might say, well, can we get this one today and come back in a week or so? And no, I didn't want to drive to Jackson or wherever my clinic was, but if I really wanted to do that as a parent, I could space those vaccines out.
And now the way it has gotten with technology, regardless of the vaccine you're getting, there's going to be a record. There's going to be a record on that
Yes.
in case you was to forget. Well, when did I do the last? There'll be a
Yes.
record on file of wherever you got that. Now, is
That's
that
correct.
into a statewide database? For instance, if I get it at one place today and come back next year, want to go to another place, will it be?
We
at this-
hope. We
Will it be in
hope.
a statewide system as to where they know
That's
I
a
got it
good
somewhere
question.
else? They know I got it somewhere else a year ago.
Yeah.
If you do it through the health department, and I can only speak for COVID, they have that record. And you can get it reproduced because I'm guilty of that. I had to do that with my COVID record.
Yes.
If immunizations for your kids, you can also do that. Am I right, Heather?
Yes, there is a statewide database, but you have to make sure your provider is putting that information
Yes.
into the database. Or you can get a copy of your shot record, for example, the shots that you got the other day, and you can take that to the health department and they will put that on your record. So I've had to do that myself. For myself and for my child because they missed some of my child's vaccines, putting them into the database.
Well, why?
That's a good question.
Why have we, girls? Why have we seen such a rise early this year in the flu? So why have we seen such a rise early in September and October now?
They think that since we have done well with our social distancing and we haven't been exposed to just common viruses and germs because we have done the social distancing and we've
done a good job.
We've done a really good job. But with doing that really good job is the fact that especially our kids haven't been exposed to just germs and viruses that they typically would. So they don't have the immunity that kids did 2 or 3 years ago. That's one thing. The other is that
Adults don't.
No, we don't.
Because we haven't been around it.
That's one of the things that they think that it is. And we're not as healthy, I don't think, right now as we were a couple of years ago, simply because we've neglected our preventative things and our lifestyle's gotten a little lazier and our mental health is not as good. And our stress level, COVID had such an impact on everyone's stress. And stress is very damaging to your body and your immunity.
Well, I think trying to catch up, I think we feel like we need to catch up. I know our school systems, we know that we have a 2-year lag on their testing and their scores. We know that. But our teachers are working really hard. Our parents are working really hard. I mean, even my grandparents, and I know Nana over here, Grandma, she works with her babies, trying to make sure that they're not behind. I mean, mine comes home and they'll say, okay, get out the homework, and then we're going to do some extra. So it's just like that sense of urgency. That's a good example for me,
And for me, I want to be out and I want to see people because it's like I've missed things.
Yes.
So I'm going more, or I have been going more.
I've not been home every weekend since September.
And that's putting me at exposure to larger crowds, and I'm busier. And if I'm busier, I don't sleep as well. I sure don't eat as well.
And I don't exercise.
Oh, no.
Yeah. So those are the three things that can boost your immunity right there.
But the things, that we've learned about the last 2.5 years with COVID, I mean, that was just common information that we should have been aware of before COVID. I mean, if someone's sick, stay away from them. I mean, wash your hands,
home.
wash your hands.
It's okay to stay home.
Sure.
Yes, it is.
Sure.
It's amazing you would say that. Flu prevention.
Right here.
What are the ways you can prevent the flu? Follow a healthy diet with at least 1.5 cups of fruit and 2 cups of vegetables every day. Not once a month or once a week, every day.
Not the plate lunch.
Not the plate, that's right. A goal of at least 30 minutes per day of moderate intensity, and that can be a brisk walk.
Yeah.
It can be gardening. And the good thing about that is you can break it up into 10-minute sessions. You don't just have to take 30 minutes to go exercise. You can do 10 minutes here and 10 minutes there and 10 minutes later. Get adequate sleep.
We didn't have it last night.
No, none of us did.
No, we didn't. No.
It says at least 7 hours per night. Oh, my goodness.
I missed that.
I missed that for a long time now.
Grandma doesn't sleep well.
No, I do not. Drink water and stay hydrated. Again, I don't do a very good job of that. Avoid sugary or caffeinated beverages. Wash your hands often with soap and water.
And I think we're still not doing that, but I think people are like, we're just tired of it,
We are tired of it. And a lot of people don't know how to wash your hands. When you wash your hands and you put those dirty hands on that faucet to turn it on, and then you wash your hands really good, and then you turn it off with that clean hand, you're dirty again.
Yeah.
So use that dish towel or that paper towel to turn off the water so you don't recontaminate your hands. Doorknobs. One of the biggest things that you can get cross-contamination from is a doorknob because everybody's touched it. And we all do it. We drink after our kids. We drink after our spouses. Ball teams drink after each other, and here we go.
We drink after hours.
Yeah.
That's another topic in totally sorry.
So,
it's fine.
And the last 2 comments on flu prevention is avoid close contact with people who are sick and get the vaccine.
Well, I tell you, we need to take a break right now for our friends at Apex Bank. Let's have this message right now, and we'll be back with the second portion of Operation 7570. Stay with us.
For more than 85 years, Apex Bank of Camden has built a tradition of local people serving local people. Although there have been changes over the years, this one thing remains the same. Hometown people that are your friends serving you every day to meet your financial needs. We want to see you grow and prosper. And when you ever have a need, you'll get personal attention right here at home, not in some far-off corporate office. Number one in customer service. Apex Bank of Camden, Benton County's best bank. Member FDIC, equal housing lender.
We're back, ladies and gentlemen, on the second portion this morning of Operation 7570. Here we are the first Saturday in the month of November, and in the studios, in case you joined us late this morning, Tammy Carter, Heather Deckard Smith are with us today talking about maybe how you can prevent the flu, as flu season is really upon us. It started early this year, talking about things regards flu vaccination, flu prevention, things like that. We're going to have more discussion on the second portion of the show, but Tammy, let me ask you this. At the top of the program, we mentioned another respiratory ailment, and it's affecting a lot of toddlers, I think, babies. It's called RSV. What is RSV, and how does that relate to our conversation today?
Well, RSV is a virus that is very common in children, especially kids that are 2 and younger, and there's no vaccine for it. So the easiest way to prevent it is do not touch or kiss a small child. Don't touch their hands, don't kiss on them, because that's the number one way that RSV is spread.
And I would like to say, don't get in their face.
No.
You know, like we want to get in that carrier and we want to, all that stuff.
And we grab their little hands because they grab ours back.
Yeah,
But
no.
that's a no-no. It is a respiratory virus, and what happens is when it swells or the mucus gets in their little airway is teeny-tiny, and any type of swelling or change in it causes them to have real respiratory distress, so they can get in trouble very quickly.
So it would be like us breathing through a straw.
Yes,
Like if you
a little straw, a coffee straw.
Yeah, had to breathe through a little coffee stir all day long. That's what it does. That mucus gets in there and it starts, inflammation starts, and then, and then they sound rattly and they sound terrible, and then they try to cough and then their cough sounds bad, and they just have a hard time breathing.
Yes. So it's called the triple threat this year, or the tri-epidemic, and it's a combination of the RSV, the flu, and COVID-19. And when a child, and especially a baby, gets that, it is overwhelming. And we've got to think about it. There are only X number of beds, hospital beds, for pediatrics and especially neonates, little bitty tiny babies. So if you've got 50 beds and 100 kids, where are those other kids going to go? And that's a specialized area of healthcare. I couldn't go in and take care of one of those kids without extensive training on addition to what I already have. Mm-hmm. It's just anybody can't go in and take care of a sick child like that.
It's a very specialized field. It's a very small pool of employees or
professionals.
Yes, and it is a small unit of the hospital.
That's
Those
right.
are not big hospital units.
And I would imagine the things you're talking about, let's just use big children's hospital facilities right now, like Vanderbilt Children's Hospital, Le Bonheur in Memphis,
Yes.
St. Jude's. They are there, to help the child. But when we have things like this, it affects the other operations. It affects the other day-by-day operations that the hospital staff needs to take care of with the kids, doesn't it? Yes.
I saw yesterday one of the children's hospitals in Chicago, their average wait time in their pediatric ER was 10 hours. That's a long time to wait with a sick child, especially one that's having trouble breathing. It's overwhelming for the parent, the grandparent, and for the staff, because they see those children.
And they want to help
And
them.
they want to, but there's just so much they can do. Mm-hmm. So that's just another thing to look at.
I just seen a 6-year-old diagnosed with RSV this week. So it's just not little babies.
It's not just anyone.
Is there an age,
Yes.
as
We
the toddlers
carry
go up
RSV.
and, is there an age where
I'm sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt.
Well, that's all right. Just where they just like 6, 7, where they just don't need to be
carry
affected
it.
by it.
We
Yeah,
do.
Okay.
We don't usually get sick from it, or we don't get as sick, but it can be fatal, especially to the
little ones.
To the little ones and to the elderly.
Yeah. So we've probably had RSV, so we have immunity
to it. Yes.
And that's why we don't show a lot of symptoms if we have it. We might get a little, a day or something like that, but they haven't had it or been exposed to it, and that's why, they're building their immunity when they get it.
Well, it's inevitable. Some people we
Yes.
know as we go along, they're going to get the flu. Some people we know have
Yes.
already had the flu. Somebody's got to be their caregiver. So how
Yes.
can you give care to a sick one with the flu and not get it yourself?
Again, they recommend a mask now. They recommend frequent
Yes.
hand washing. They recommend disinfecting the surfaces that
In their room.
In their room. Segregate. Kind of keep them as isolated as you possibly can. And we all know when you've got a loved one, you can't keep them separated all the time. You can't be separated from them. But again, just goes back to the common sense. Use as much common sense as you can to avoid you being directly exposed over and over and over.
And I would say go ahead and get a little care kit together. We've
Yes.
lacked on that a little bit. You know, go ahead and get you some wipes now. Go ahead and get you some Lysol again. You may have it and it may be scattered out the house.
Or you used it all.
Yeah, so get that. Get you some gloves. Get you some throwaway mask. Get you some. Have some things. I tell my elderly clients, go ahead and have you a Sprite and a can of chicken noodle soup or some broth. I know those are expensive items sometimes. You know, go ahead and make sure you have Tylenol and things so that if you are single and you know it's just you in the home, you're going to have a day or two of provisions, and then you can call in the backup.
Yeah,
you know.
yeah. And if the home, has more than one bathroom, is it proper, for the sick one to use that
Yes.
empty
Yes. I
separate
would, yes.
bathroom
And
by,
then
by
I would-
themselves? Yeah.
And I would go back in there and
Clean it up.
I
yeah.
wanna clean it up.
Disinfect.
Yeah.
Yes.
I understand.
Yeah.
Okay.
One of the other things, Flash, when we talk about the triple threat is to
Yes.
get kids up to date on their standard immunizations and get them their COVID boosters and get them the flu vaccine. That's the best way we can prevent more kids from getting sick, is to make sure that they are up on all their immunizations.
And I will say, our school system, our nurses, and we just had one to win a wonderful
Yeah,
award
we did.
this way.
Shout out to Kayla Mills.
Yes. She is doing that team of nurses. I'm telling
Awesome.
y'all, they're taking good care of our babies. And our school system is one of the only school systems that almost all of the kids coming in have their vaccines. Without an exemption or something like that. But all of our kids, our school team does a really good job making sure and following up and making sure that when you go into the 6th grade or you go into whatever grade that might be and you have to have a booster or something like that, they're following up with that parent and that student to make sure, hey, this is why you need this and this is,
And that, you talk about the nurses like Kayla, and I want to give another shout out in
gosh.
case people missed the news this week. She won Nurse of the Year by the Tennessee School Nurses Association at a convention, I guess it was.
Yes.
Great individual she is with her staff that she works with, Donna Moore and all the girls. But what I started to say, Heather and Tammy, was that, with what they're doing in the schools, that is a front line of defense. That is
Yes.
a front line of
Yes, it
defense to
is.
keep everybody healthy.
And they've already started talking about washing your hands. I did a lesson this week at kindergarten, and they're telling them to wash their hands. It's hard for a little kid not to touch and share and all of that stuff, but they are preaching the message at school. Try to wash your hands before you put things in your mouth. When we come in and out of the classroom, we're putting Germ-X on. They're teaching them at a very young age because they want them to be at school and to learn. They don't want them to miss school. We have kids that don't eat if they don't go to school in our low-income families. And so, it's just a lot safer for some of our children to be at school during the day.
And then those kids take that learning home, and mom and
Teach.
daddy see it, and grandparents see it, and they become the teachers.
Mm-hmm.
If you look at the history of vaccines, someone says, well, vaccines are new. No, they're really not. Back, the first recorded information on vaccines was dated in 1549. But they had been using a type of, they called it inoculation back then. Even in the early history. Then we kind of come along, and let's just bring it up to recent, because Heather shared a fact with me that overwhelms me.
Yes.
In 1954, the vaccine against polio was developed. In the early 60s, the oral polio vaccine came into being. By the 1990s, polio was eliminated in the United States and most of Europe. By the early 2000s, it was eliminated from the Americas, Europe, and most of Asia. By 2010, it had receded to only a few local outbreaks in Africa and Central America. By the 2020s, which currently that's us, types 2 and 3 were eradicated, and type 1 was only present in Central Asia. But
I have been to a meeting, and they shared some vaccine information, and they have now found the active live virus of the measles in the New York sewer system.
measles or polio?
I'm sorry, polio. I'm sorry, but they have measles in that water system as well.
Also,
yes, live active virus of both of those. But polio scares me because some of my earliest images
Memories.
of vaccine is the little dot on people's arms, and so I always would ask, what was that? And they would tell me, it's for polio, and that my mama, was so happy, cried tears of joy when I could get that, so that I wouldn't live in an iron lung.
That's right.
And so we do not want to go back to the days of the iron
and
lung.
I remember the days
That's
years
scary.
ago as a
Yes.
kid, tuberculosis back in the days. The health department they bring in a mobile
Yes.
van from Nashville back
Yes.
back in the 60s, maybe into the early 70s. That would be set up, to do screenings for tuberculosis in that way.
So some of these major killers of our past have been eradicated,
But we're seeing a little
Yes.
reemergence.
but
of
they
those.
were eradicated because everyone got their immunizations, and it's called population immunity, where that a certain number of the people in your population must be vaccinated, must have the immunity before that you're classified as protected.
Yeah, so it's
And-
about 95%.
And we're not at that.
No.
Is there, you mentioned the term population immunity, and during COVID we heard about herd immunity.
This is
Is
a
that the
little-
same
It's the same
thing? Is that the
thing.
same
Yes.
thing? Okay.
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
All right.
Yes. But 95%, we are falling behind that in the United States of America. So vaccines that people can get, like you said, you got the flu vaccine, shingles for older adults. Those are some things that it's important for you to keep up with, because if people keep missing those, then we're going to have little pockets of outbreaks. Just like they had in New York with the German measles and some things they had going on there. A couple of years ago, there was an outbreak linked to Disney World, where international travelers were coming into our country, and they weren't vaccinated, and other little kids got that
Yeah.
and brought it home.
Yeah. Well, you mentioned shingles, and
Yes.
when I was a kid,
You
6,
had
7 years
chicken
old, I
pox?
had chicken pox. Now, then, at this particular point, 60 years after the
It
fact,
can come back.
do I need a shingle shot then?
It is highly recommended.
Okay.
Yes.
All right.
It can come back because you
Yes.
carry the virus
Okay.
in your body.
What's the relationship with chicken pox and shingles then?
It is the same virus,
Okay.
but it affects you differently. The shingles invades the sheath of the nerves, and whereas chickenpox was more of a systemic, all over your system
Little
reaction. Something that's really interesting is during the 2019-2020 flu season, 7.5 million flu illnesses were prevented because of the vaccination, 3.7 million flu-related medical visits, 105,000 hospitalizations with the flu, and 6,300 deaths. And that, whenever I look at that, I just can't imagine why someone doesn't get the vaccination. And it also says that it lessens the number of medical visits by as much as 40 to 60%.
And I don't think people think about this, but that's an economic impact too.
Yes.
Okay, so people can't go to work, or people have, sometimes they can work from home now because we've changed the way we do things in certain types of job fields. But it costs, you got to get your medicine, you got to get your test, you got to go to the appointment, you're going to be off work for 5 to 7 days. We have people that can't be off from work 5 to 7 days. So I think people don't think about that aspect of it as well. And then, like if in my house, if Ivy gets sick, then I'm going to have to be off with Ivy. So there's a potential that I could be home for 14 days.
Yes.
And if I had another type of career where I didn't have sick leave, that's 2 weeks without a paycheck. That is devastating to a family. But, those people go on to go to work, and then I would send Ivy to Flash. Well, that's not a good idea.
That's not good. No, that's
right?
not good. No.
But that's what happens because mom and dad have to go to work,
Sure.
and they send them to the neighbor or they send them to the grandparents.
Or
and
they stay home sometimes by themselves.
By themselves.
Now, is there a state, speaking of state databases, is there a state database that we can access every so often to see? I know we did where we can see how many flu cases that we have.
CDC, and it'll
Okay.
break it down by state.
Yes. Right now we have.
Where does this come from, Heather?
This comes from the University of Tennessee Extension, our Health and Human Service Department, and I send out a newsletter, and each month it has our flu update. And so with our flu update, right now we are very high in the red. Georgia, we're right behind Georgia. But visits in Tennessee, you can see that it's just going straight up. And, us in the South, we don't do very well about, we have a high, it seems to start in major metropolitan areas, New York, those types of things. But it seems to kind of happen in the South and spread a lot of times.
Well, you mentioned Georgia, and of course this afternoon there's
Yes.
a great
Big
football
game.
Chances are people will attend to that football game.
Oh.
They'll have a good time. Go Big Orange.
Oh, yeah.
But chances are
Yes.
that could be a flu spreader.
That's
Yes.
a super
Yes.
spreader.
That's a super spreader. We were at Super Spreaders last night at the football game, and I thought, but I was amongst my people. But still, even though that you're amongst your people, I can still get the flu. I was at a super spreader event on Thursday. I was with 106 kids.
That's a super spreader.
School is a
Sure,
super spreader.
sure.
But don't be afraid of that. Just
But,
take precautions.
As we've learned, it's hard. It's hard to be separated from the people we love to see on a daily
I
basis.
love
It's been
it,
very hard
yeah.
the last 2 years, and as you know, this can work on your mental state as
Oh,
well.
it sure can.
I was just watching something on MPT. I love to read things and learn new things and watch informational things. So they were doing a Know Your Neighbor segment and talking about mental health, all ages of people, immigrants, elderly, people in professions, people that are taking care of people in those professions, about the mental toll we are still seeing because of COVID and those types of things. And then they're just seeing people ease back in, and trying to correct those mental things that have happened because of that.
Are we coping with it? It's still out there, I understand that, but are
Yeah.
we coping with it much, much better than we were 2 years ago?
I don't know that we're well, I think that, yes, it's become part of our everyday routines.
Yes.
But I think that we also, and I'm trying to think of the term, is it tolerance? No, that's not what but we have
It's
We-
not even acceptance. I don't know.
we're fatigued.
Sure.
That's what it is. We're fatigued
Yes.
with hearing about it to where we kind of do our
numb.
own thing. We're numb. We're complacent now. And that is partially good, but it's also very dangerous for us because now we're just sometimes very
okay.
lax.
Yeah.
And with this flu season coming on, we can't be lax. We need to be strong and follow the simple rules again. Distance, stay home, get your vaccines, wash your hands.
Because the more time you're exposed to things, your body builds immunity, right? So we have a high population of young people and older people that have been home for 2 years and not exposed to that flu. And so, they've missed 2 years of that exposure. And so, when you get something now, and we've talked about it, maybe we are not as healthy as we were before COVID came in because we're not exercising, because we're not eating right, because of the mental stress, those types of things, it's gonna hit harder this time. And people who never get sick, my husband says, well, I never get sick. Well, you know what? We have a 6-year-old and he's been sick because he was never exposed before. He went to worked in his truck a lot of times by himself, went out and did landscaping jobs, so they were outdoors or, whatever they were doing. And then now we have a little person in our home, and she's exposed to all those friends, and then she gets it, and then guess what? If we hadn't had it a while, then we're gonna get it. And so that's something I think even for parents, grandparents, that's important to know just to help protect everybody.
Yeah. I think the overall thing we're talking about this morning is a partnership. And speaking of partnerships, it happened earlier this week. Y'all may have seen it. As a matter of fact, your friend Randy Boyd, president of the UT system, he was down with the chancellor of the UT medical units down in Memphis. They were doing a tour, and they stopped down at Jackson, Madison County General, and Amy Garner, your friend, Amy down there, gave them a good tour. And everybody just working as a partnership right now to for healthy living and healthy causes.
Go ahead, Tammy.
Well, I was just going to say, I look at what others are doing. I look at the science. When St. Jude required, if possible, all of their employees and their patients to get the COVID vaccine, that spoke volumes to me, because if St. Jude, the premier children's research hospital in the world, says we need to do this, I felt like I needed to do that. When major hospital corporations, entities such as West Tennessee Healthcare, says you need to get your vaccination for this or this, then again I pay attention, because they are research based. They have infectious disease specialists who are on top of all this. It says this is what we should do. This is what the science says. This is how we keep everybody healthy. So I say follow the science, but again, use those common sense things of hand washing, be healthy, get your rest, drink your water.
Yeah. Live a healthy lifestyle. And that's something that our county, needs to hear over and over and over again. We're trying to make, not that it's not a great place to live, but we're trying to make everybody have a healthy life.
Yes.
And be able to extend their life and enjoy what we have in our community, in our small towns. People move here because they want to experience that. And, I don't want people to miss out or, have a complication or a disease that could be preventable. Not all diseases are preventable, but some are because of our lifestyle changes. And, if we can get the flu vaccine and, try to keep those numbers down in our community, that would help, being able to go and, nobody missing a meal this Christmas and Thanksgiving, because it's coming. What is it, 2-3 weeks away?
Not far away.
We were talking about it last night at the ball game. Who was going to bring what, you know? And I don't want to miss seeing my nephew or our family not being able to go because we have the flu, because I'm tired of being away from my people. And everybody is.
Yeah. And we want to give you a last word here in just a moment.
Yes.
But Tammy, here it just dawns on me that we have just ended the month of October. And usually in October, I ran out of Saturdays. I usually have you on to talk about Breast Cancer Awareness Month. And you and I have both been affected with friends who have suffered under that dreaded disease. And, even though Breast Cancer Awareness Month has ended, we still need to be on the guard on that as well.
We do. And, Flash, we did this last year, the last Saturday in October with Rhonda, and we've lost Rhonda since then because of her cancer. And, it's important, because I can tell you countless people, I can't count on my two hands how many people since this year that have been diagnosed with cancer, breast cancer. So,
and some of it is because of COVID.
Yes, they didn't get their mammograms. They didn't, they didn't get to do what they typically would have done.
Self-care.
So when it was discovered, it was advanced enough that it wasn't treatable or so the outcome was not as good. So if you didn't get your mammogram, I plugged for you. Go right now, this month.
Yes.
Before the end of the year.
If something isn't right in your body and you know it, you need to go. Whether it's breast cancer or any type of thing that's not right, please go to see your provider.
And we spent a lot of time talking about COVID and especially the flu, but like the Gardasil vaccine that's recommended for teenagers now, it can prevent up to, I believe it's 30 different types of cancer. That's the type of cancers that I'm seeing now in my practice as a nurse practitioner, is some of those cancers that may have been caused by that Gardasil would have prevented that person from having.
And that's for Boys and girls.
Yes, boys and girls. Yes, it's not just,
Mm-hmm.
but now then there are men and women who have cancers that are tied back to what Gardasil would have protected them from.
We're in our closing moments today. Tammy, what are some good sources of information for healthy living? What's about flu, COVID, or, breast cancer, things like that? Is there a good source out there for all this stuff? CDC, WebMD, whatever? What do you recommend?
I like CDC, but sometimes it's very much over my head, and sometimes it's hard to find. I'm as bad as anybody to Google, but then again, sometimes I get really good information like from the UT system that's up to date for our area.
Yeah. I would say anything that ends in ORG or EDU, those are reputable sources that they are not doing it to get you to buy something or get you to send you to another website. Those are usually institutions of higher education, and those types of things that, they're doing the work to provide your information, like this 5-page handout that came from Memphis. So if you want that, you can come by my office and get it.
So sometimes I'll look usually at the CDC
Yeah.
first, but then Mayo is another
Mayo,
good one.
yeah.
Cleveland Clinic is another
Yes.
good one.
Any of the children's hospitals.
Any of the children's hospitals.
They have great information. American Diabetes Association,
American Heart
Association, Breast Cancer, Susan G. Komen Foundation. All of those foundations that we know, and they're out there and we see them, and they're doing, they're spending their money or their dollars to research and prevent diseases. Those are good places to find your information.
Well, as we close this morning, Tammy, I'll talk with you for closing, ask you for a closing remark, and then after that, I'll get Heather to give us the date of the vaccination, the flu vaccination at the health department again. So start her off.
Well, first off, thank you, Flash, for having us, and I hope that our listening audience didn't feel like we were just pushing it down your throat, because it is a personal choice.
understand.
Everybody got
Yes.
to make their own personal decision.
And
It's
if you
fine.
choose not to, I honor that.
Yeah.
However, again, think about it, research it, talk to other people. Talk to people that may have a different opinion from you and ask them, why did you do it? Why did you not do it?
Yes.
And get their thoughts on it. And again, follow the science, research it, look into it, and then just sit back and use your common sense. Is this really what I need to do, or what I don't need to do? I got the whoopee cloth vaccine a couple of years ago because I had small grandchildren, and I didn't want to expose them to that. Now, did I need it? Was it going to help me? No, but it was going to help all of the children that I come in contact with. So again, I looked at the research, and then I thought this is the right thing for me to get that vaccination.
Yes.
Heather, go right ahead.
It's personal choice. I understand. That doesn't mean I still don't love you. And I, respect you and your choice. That's how I roll. So just like Tammy said, do your research, do your homework, talk to your friends, talk to your family, talk to people that you respect in the community.
Yes.
See what they think and what they're going to do. But our flu clinic, flu pod, you can get a flu vaccine at any of our pharmacies, doctor's offices, and then you can also go to the school clinic if you have our new clinic at the school. May have some flu vaccines there. Health department pod is November the 9th. They're trying to, what was the theme? I can't remember. I couldn't find it. But they have a little saying they're going to, across the state of Tennessee, they're going to have flu pods at all of the health departments in the state of Tennessee to kind of get us ready for flu season that is already here and in full swing. So make sure that you go by and get your
Is
vaccine.
that going to be going on all day, or will there something be a time? Okay, all day. I think they
so.
open at 8
Yes.
o'clock. I think
Yeah.
they open at 8, close I think at 4:30.
And one other thing, there is a senior meaning 65 and older flu vaccine that they
Yes.
are highly recommending that flash that you would consider this year.
Well, I appreciate that, and I hope that's what I got about 6 weeks ago, as a matter of
I
fact.
bet
then.
I bet if you go back and look, that's what you got.
I
Yes.
got poked, I'll put it that way.
There you
Yeah.
go. There you go.
Girls, thank you so much. It's been an honor to have you in our
Yes.
studios today. Thank you for such great information today, and it's always a pleasure. Have a great weekend, and we'll chat with both of you on down the road in the very near future.
Yes, thank
Thank
you.
you.
That's our program, Operation 7570 this morning. Thanks to our guest, Miss Tammy, Miss Heather, for being with us. Thanks to our sponsor, Apex Bank. Hope you have a great weekend. We'll see you next Saturday morning.
Apex Bank is proud of our veterans and their service to our country.